It so happened that that evening for Hikar, everything came to the end. The young man did not hear the car signal because there was no signal at all. The truck driver just got out of the road and went on. Already feeling unbearable pain, the Hikar felt the consciousness of gradually fading. The last thing he saw is a damn truck that destroyed all his dreams of Andrea. After death, people dressed in white shirts cross the Sansa River. The whole process happens at the same time for everyone, creating a true crush even in the other world. The crew remembered the words of his teacher, who hinted at the existence of life after death. But what he saw Hikar now went beyond all the usual ideas. Walking forward in the long queue, Hikar could not understand why everything was so complicated and why it was so grueling at all. Thinking about what was happening, the young man realized everything and resigned himself to his senseless death. This situation was even a little cheerful of Hikar, because he could never imagine that he would die at such a young age. According to the principle of his life, to stay away from all, Hikar left the turn and decided to take a little stroll. At that moment, the guy remembered that atmosphere was far from perfect at home. Constant quarrels of parents, and almost no one noticed him. The family prevailed images and misunderstandings. Heavy reflections cut off the noise from the outside. Someone shouted loudly. After curiosity, Hikar saw a group of guys who were brutally beaten by someone. Although he has never fought before, this time he decided that since he considers himself dead, it is worth trying to intervene in a fight. He struck one of the guys with his foot, handing him his energy to accelerate. From the surprise, Lysi Grunge screamed and flew away. Having recovered from surprise, Lysi Gruni was angry and asked Kakir why he did it. Instead of answering, Kakir decided to complete his beginning and pressed his foot with all force to the bald, depriving him of his connection with the outside world. Two accomplices of the bald gum, deciding to escape, dragged behind a smart friend. Hikra, meanwhile, helped the wounded to get up, and he in turn thanked his rescuer and asked his name. In gratitude, the rescued man lifted Hikaru a strange purse, the same as the guy had already seen in others. He explained that Hikar should have the same thing, and he just has to find it. Hikaru was amazed at a strange gift, and the beaten guy said it was the best he could do to express his gratitude. At that moment, a stranger approached Hikar, who witnessed everything that had happened and politely asked to listen to him. Ryu also noted that the stranger's clothing was different from the clothes of others because he was not in white. Blondin began to explain that his time is limited, so he would try to be laconic. Blondin demonstrated a dark spot on his clothes, which testified to the great loss of blood. Hikar stared at this spooky wound and asked what had happened. The stranger, with sadness, confessed that his death was inevitable. Hikar could not understand what was happening in general and how this man was still alive, but was here. Hikar also did not understand how he could stand in a place of a completely different life. Blondin replied that he was from a completely different world. The wounded guy explained that he used a special skill to move between the worlds, which made himself here. Hikaru, for his part, confessed that he did not understand anything in these stories, and it begins to annoy him. Blondin reminded that it is not enough time, so you should not delve into the details. Hikar should just go back to your home and make an important desire. It would be great if everything came out. Blondin said that if successful, Hikar will be able to return to the living, reborn in the real world. This news was a surprise for Hikar and aroused him. Hikara thought that the prospect of being revived was extremely attractive. After all, he was already dead, so there was nothing to fear. In the meantime, Blondin told how Hikaru, the team felt a suspicion of excessive smoothness of the plan and wondered what it could cost them. After all, for revival, you will always have to donate something, and it is better to know what exactly. Blondin promised to explain everything as soon as they arrive. The wounded stranger reminded of limited time, and asked to trust him, as he could assure that the crew was not in fact in any danger. After a short reflection, Hikar decided to go to the world of strangers and listen to their important request. Hikar himself was curious to know how other worlds really look like. Blondin enthusiastically stated that it would now apply its ability to travel between dimensions. Then the blonde in the form that was the guard was introduced and named his unusual name, Roland Naizara. A bright magical circle shone around the boys, and Roland solemnly announced that he would hand over his body to Hikar. After the bright light stopped blinding his eyes, Hikar felt the warmth of his body. His arms and legs were filled with sensitivity. This resembled awakening after a long sleep. When he came to his senses, Hikaru carefully rose to his feet and realized that he was in the room. His interest turned to his own condition, and he decided to look carefully at himself. His surprise was not boundaries, because his reflection in the mirror was a real confirmation of his second birth. Hikaru did not have time to recover from his primordial surprise, as he was engulfed by acute headache. Immediately in the mind began to emerge excerpts from scenes of someone else's life. When the pain in his head, Hikaru realized that he had received all the memories of Roland, and it turned out to be a rather painful process. Just as Hikaru realized that he was now Roland, and saw the wounded blonde, immediately accused Roland of misleading, and demanded that he really happened to him. Having come to Roland, Hikaru asked why he intended to kill someone else now. This is exactly what Roland sought. Roland confessed that his true desire was always a murder, and the Hikaru should put an end to this vicious counter-man. The man is a key figure in the corrupt aristocracy. Roland said that he tried to expose the crimes of the Count, but Amors ordered him to kill his parents, and then himself. Roland explained that he was able to defeat the killer with the help of a stone that pulls out his soul, but paid for this by most of his soul, and within an hour he would die forever. Hikaru asked whether he realized correctly that he had to be able to kill the Count until now. Roland warned that if the Hikaru does not have time, his soul will be rejected, and the revival would not happen. Hikaru felt suspicious and confessed that he did not like it all. However, Roland was instantly angry and stated that there was no other way, and to leave the cursed graph would be a mistake not only for the kingdom, but perhaps for all humanity. Hikaru realized that he would not be able to refuse. If Roland throws his soul, he will disappear forever in nothing. Realizing the criticality of the moment, he raised the knife and decided to act. Realizing that there was no other way out, Hikaru stated that he was ready to support Roland in exchange for his life. Hikaru asked if he understood everything correctly, because when he was going to kill such a highly official aristocrat, one must be prepared for consequences. Roland agreed and noted that he had prepared a gift for the Hikaru for this case. Roland said he received this gift as a child and asked Hikaru to focus on the maximum. There was a window that listed the name and age of Hikaru. Roland explained that these are possible characteristics, which was very surprised by Hikaru. He asked if it was something familiar. Roland explained that he had very little strength, so while he is here, he would try to tell in detail what should be done next. I decided that it is time to prepare because it is necessary to be prepared for everything that happens. When Hikaru touched the magic status window, the question came about whether he wanted to unlock the soul window that would cost him one characteristic ball. All this was a mystery to him, but he decided to open that mysterious soul window. After confirmation, strange characters appeared in front of him. Hikaru realized that the number of original characteristic points coincided with his age. He decided that since his task was to destroy an important person, it was necessary to get carefully to the goal. Hikaru began to view various available skills, but none of them increased his agility. He realized that he would have to look for other abilities to attack. Suddenly, the screen updated, and Hikaru began to look carefully at something useful. The mechanics of using the window of the soul resembled a habitat ordinary tablet. The young man quickly realized that there were only 7 screens. These pages reflected a person's life abilities. It was not known what other screens reflect, but Hikaru realized, you need to spend 6 points to find out. Roland reminded him 45 minutes before completion. Time was slow, and Hikaru decided to reveal some secret. Various areas of development, such as magic, strength, agility, flexibility, invisibility, and speed, began to appear. Hikaru decided that magic is unlikely to be useful for dishonest use. System voice suggested that a new skill be discovered in one available score. Hikaru realized that he had to pay for everything, and noticed that some skills had no subscription and remained temporarily inaccessible. The guy decided that inaccessible skills, apparently, could only be activated for spent points, so he decided to try to do it. In the end, 3 more skills managed to discover. The skill of life has made it possible to reveal the ability to identify life up to 5 units. The magical power opened the door to magical detection, and perception made it possible to develop the ability to detect odors, sounds, and visual signals. Hikaru guessed that serious guards would be present on his way to his goal, so he decided to invest 1 point in the skills of life and magical power, and to pump perception to the maximum. After the perception has been improved to the maximum, a new skill was opened in Hikaru, which immediately awakened his curiosity. The new skill was the ability to murder, and Hikaru decided that she would be useful when hunting for the Count. This would be the best solution. It is obvious that strangers will still have to be killed in this world. Having completed the improvement of assassin skills, Hikaru noticed the emergence of a new ability, a sniper. He decided to rise to a new level because it was such skills that he needed. Unfortunately, it is no longer possible to improve, so Hikar decided to experience his new skills. He reminded himself that only 35 minutes remained ahead. The unusual condition was felt as if the body had disappeared, and there was incredible lightness. He constantly mentioned time, and Hikar asked him not to hurry, because it was incredibly annoyed. Thanks to Roland's memoirs, Hikar knew well that the Count was in this city. Without spending more time, Hikaru left the key to the administrator and left the hotel. Soon he was already standing in front of the right building, which should have a graph. Although it was only 25 minutes, unfortunately, the rear door was closed. Finding a different way, Hikar decided to enter through the main entrance. Once in the room, Hikar immediately came across two men who discussed his wealthy clients lively. To the surprise of Hikar, they did not even notice his presence. Unexpectedly for Hikar, his skill worked much better than he imagined. He calmly walked past two guys in a narrow corridor, left unnoticed. The partner remained unmoved, because it was raining outside the window. He explained the observant guardian that no one had appeared here for a long time, especially did not go out. However, the guards decided that these traces were left by members of the Guild of Alchemists who trained their daughter. In the end, the guards calmed down and continued the patrol, vividly discussing the beautiful girls who were recently met in local tavern. Hikar sighed with relief, because he was almost sure that he was about to be exposed. Exploring the room behind the room, Hikaru came across the only light. It was there that it was rumored that the graph should be doomed. Drew decided to make sure that behind the door was the same man, and heard a familiar voice who scolded a baron and exploded with emotional indignation. Hearing this, Hikar immediately recognized the voice of Roland's memoirs. No doubt, this voice belonged to the countermorks. Hikar realized that the decisive moment had come. His feelings were intertwined with Roland's emotions, mixing doubts with anger and thirst for revenge. However, it was obvious that if he opened the door, there would be no road back, and he would have to kill that person. Thirst for life was still prevailing, and Hikaru, with trembling hands, grabbed a cold metal door handle. The cold metal handle met Hikar uninvited, but the guy pressed his hand. Chaotic thoughts interfered, but he began to assure himself that everything would be fine, and a decisive step should be taken. The thirst was overwhelmed, and only the death of the villain could give him a chance. The unpleasant tremor in his hand did not rest, and Hikaru mentioned how easily died under the wheels of a cursed truck. This unknown world was not so pleasant, because people here die in an instant. The team realized the most important rule of this world and its life: killing or dreaming, the third is not given. The annoying roll in the game reminded him that only 10 minutes left. Occupied with important things, Count Amox heard an unpleasant creaking door, but did not immediately tear his gaze from the documents. He was sure that someone entered the room, but to his surprise, he did not see anyone. The bright red carpet emphasized the absurdity of the situation, leaving Count Amox in confusion. The Earl decided that maybe someone was behind the door and asked if there were knights there. Without hearing the answer, Amors came to the conclusion that he simply allowed his imagination to play. Nork continued to read the letters, not even noticing the presence of the one who decided to take his life. As expected, Harao stated that the calculation was incorrect. It shocked the aristocrat, and he immediately wondered who this character was. The situation intensified, and the guy realized that there was nowhere. The ears of Harakis were stuck in amazement. Roland began to speak, revealing the true truth about himself. He explained the character that he had to end the graph. Amorx, not believing heard, felt a wild fear boil in it. Through the mouth of the Harax, Roland announced that he had come to destroy the graph. Roland confessed to the character that he could not put up with the idea that he could kill someone. Poland began to own the body of the character and moved to the frightened graph, holding the dagger in front of him. All rage and desire for retribution were concentrated in the hands, ready to strike an unmistakable blow. Mark hurried to the desk, realizing that he could not withstand tension. Roland warned to be careful. Roland's rage and thirst for Harake's life merged, giving the body incredible determination. Burak said that he was ready for everything for his life, and began to shorten the distance rapidly. Over the years, the lost speed did not leave the chances of evasion, and the Harakes felt his blade easily penetrating the victim's body. Suddenly, Morocco was filled with confidence and twisted the dagger with force. Kaknomork squeezed in pain, shuddered, and eventually fell to the floor. Herqua shuddered with the horror in the form of blood. The thick smell of metal caused him nausea, and the killer's hands trembled excessively. Roland was amazed that Garak managed to control himself in such a situation. Herrick recalled that this is exactly what Roland sought from the beginning. Hicker stated that he was ready to start, if the Louvier agrees. But the girl stopped the young adventurer, saying it was extra. He explained that he thought it would be the best for the character, so it would be right to comprehend the murder. Barak noted that now he and Roland seems to have become real accomplices. Holland was delighted and expressed gratitude to the character for the fulfillment of his dream. Roland confessed that he was already losing anything. Neither money nor honor is no longer interested in him. From that moment on, he gave his life at the discretion of the character. Harao was ready to completely leave this world, and asked his accomplice to remember his name. Having introduced himself, Harao felt something charming already penetrates into his body. Roland thanked his rescuer for his help, and noted that his name and memories would now remain with the Harake forever. In all the weaker voice, Roland has always promised to pray for the character, completely giving his vital energy to the character. Roland promised him a bright and peaceful future. The Harake finally became aware, but suddenly his attention was attracted by the excited female voice from the back. The stranger wondered whether the character became the culprit of the Earl's death. The slender blonde was confidently entered the room, sending a close look at the man standing next to the dead body. Long silver hair gave her unsurpassed beauty, but still remained a mystery what she really wanted. Having taken her gaze from the character, the charming stranger broke the silence and noted that the bell had already heard. The guards were approaching. Rocky realized that before his death, the Earl still had time to hit the bell, warning of danger. He thought that it was worth activating the skill of invisibility and just escape. Unexpectedly, the girl reported that there is a rope ladder on the balcony that can use. The girl's words impressed the Harake. The stranger was telling the truth, and it was unclear why she was helping the person she first sees. The guy was hesitant, but the blonde woman loudly urged him to escape immediately and run to the balcony. Her call gave him speed, and he rushed to the rescue stairs. Gokok instantly spread the stairs and prepared to disappear from the balcony. But at this moment the guards ran into the room, responding to the spell of the figure. They were stunned, seeing Mrs. Louvier near the fixed body. Make sure that the Graf was really dead. The guards rushed to the balcony rapidly. However, angry soldiers saw only a rope ladder. The guards realized that the killer may have been searched on the ground floor. This Louvier has hardly paid attention to the noise and fuss of the guards, focusing entirely on the breathless body of the Graf. Meanwhile, the Haraki had already reached the local cemetery and realized that he had left enough to feel calm and safety. After calming down, the Harake realized how tired. He decided that he needed to rest, reflecting on what happened. Most affected the appearance of a stranger who eventually helped him avoid. The Harake was in deep depression. His conscience was tormented by a terrible sin. He deprived the life of man. Jikaru decided to become an adventurer, because it was the only opportunity to earn in an unknown world. Another reason for this choice was the free card of the Guild of Adventure, which in this world served as a person's certificate. The first order was to collect poisonous medicinal plants. These tasks were ideally suited for beginners in the guild. The exact amount of poisonous flowers for the collection was not indicated. There were no restrictions on time, and the guaranteed reward was 200 gallons. Swing into the depths of the forest. Hikar quickly came across a beautiful flower that shone with white light. It was this plant that he needed. Suddenly, something big and incredibly fast got out of the bushes, and the real miracle was that Hikar did not knock down a powerful beast. A newcomer adventurer realized that even during such a simple task, you always need to be alert. Looking closer to the animal, Kikra realized that it was just a wild boar that had already got well. However, suddenly another monster came out of the bushes. This scary and fierce monster was a big green wolf who looked carefully at the Hikar. The young adventurer knew, according to information from the guild, that these creatures were always kept with flocks and have extraordinary cruelty. Green wolves are able to hear prey at a considerable distance, which makes them even more dangerous. Jikaru realized that, despite the fact that several green wolves were busy hunting for a wild boar, he was also in the area of their senses. It was a serious threat to him. After a few minutes, the Hikaru was surprised to find that the green wolves did not notice him at all. They were quite passionate about tearing the prey. The Guild Card of Adventure has opened new opportunities. Blessing was given according to the soul panel, and everyone could change it on their card. It gave a variety of bonuses, improving certain skills depending on the desires of the adventure. On the map of the guild, everything is shown in the form of different gods, and it turned out, the shorter the name of god, the more powerful it is. Among the numerous variants were God the increase in magical power, the god of secrecy, the god of financial prosperity, and the development of large cities. However, Hikaru was first interested in God's secrecy. Hikaru seamlessly got to the green wolves and began to collect healing poisonous herbs without attracting their attention. None of the wolves and I guessed that there was a person nearby. Having collected enough medicinal herbs, Hikaru decided that this would be enough to complete the task. Now you could return to the guild and get your deserved reward. Meanwhile, the Guild of Adventures was, as always, saturated with people and full of fun. Almost all adventure men did not take their eyes off the beautiful Fleur. They competed to invite her for dinner or a walk. But Fleur rejected all the proposals and did not pay attention to their courtship. Hikaru immediately returned to the guild and greeted the girl. After all, Fleur worked as a registrar who helped to receive a guild card. The surprised Fleur noted that Hikaru returned from the mission surprisingly quickly, and adventurers asked where this guy came from. Hikaru expressed a desire to take a new task, but Flora was a little worried. Meanwhile, a few strange types have come to the young adventure seeker. 3 crazy adventurers looked at the Hikaru, as if he were defenseless prey, and there was no doubt that they thought something wrong. Hikaru decided to reveal the intentions of angry guys by activating his identification skills. Ben appealed to one of the aggressive boys named Chernenko. Why he stands here and wasted his and another's time. As an adventure seeker, it would be better for him to deal with. But the guy suddenly reached for Hikaru, asking how he dared to tell him something. However, Hikaru properly repulsed the hand of a brazen Chernenko and made it clear that he was not happy here. In the end, the adventurers decided to leave the guild, but promised Hikaru, which would remember his act. Hikaru himself realized that this is not the end, and they would wait for the right moment. The worried Fleur asked if everything would be fine with Hikaru, because it was a bad idea to quarrel with these rude people. The girl specified that they were experienced adventurers and could be dangerous. However, Hikaru said with a smile that they should not worry at all, because those guys do not look strong. However, Fleur immediately indignant and shouted that it was not at all, and lightly underestimate the situation. True stupidity. Flora noted that Chernenko became famous in the Adventure Guild with his unsurpassed physical force and was a very formidable rival. In addition, Chernenko is endowed with the blessing of the Master of Warriors, who has experienced one-handed swords. Hikaru was surprised and realized that this brave guy really had a wonderful blessing. He asked if he realized that Chernenko was able to use the 5-word god skills. Fleur confirmed the assumption of Hikaru, explaining that it was a really powerful blessing. This news did not comfort Hikaru, and he remembered that when he received a guilt card, he was told that the number of words in the name of God was determined by the rank of the adventurer. 4 words: high rank, 3, rare, 2, legendary, and 1 word means a mythical rank. He thought about his gifts. At that moment, he obeyed the murder god, a well-hidden pursuit. The secrecy god made it possible to go unnoticed. The lower god of chaos gave him the eye of the storm. He also had the gods of the quiet path and peaceful life in the city and village. Hikaru realized that after the murder of the count to the existing benefits, new ones were added. Fleur was sincerely worried about the young adventurer and wondered if everything was fine with him. Harao decided not to spread about his blessings and assured the administrator that he was not afraid of those guys and prefers not to mention them. He then suggested returning to the main question and reminded that the task was successfully completed, so it is time to get a reward. On the floor, she looked at her magazine with records of the task, which was to collect the luminous poisonous flowers and hands of Garrick, and made the collected healing plants in the bag. The Flora was surprised that the Harake was able to fit all the plants in one bag. The young adventure seeker began to suspect that he may have made some mistake. Haro said that he had collected all the plants that he could find, and asked if he had not overlooked something, putting them together. But at this point, probably already enough. Fleur replied that she did not mean it at all. The receptionist explained that the places where these shining flowers are usually blossomed are often crowded with large green wolves. She wondered if these spooky monsters did not appear at all. But Harao assured that he saw the wolves, and they were still in the forest. The girl asked herself why green wolves did not attack. In the end, Flora expressed the opinion that it was probably just lucky. The young adventure seeker decided not to reveal all his secrets and agreed with the point of view of Flora. The administrator, satisfied, promised to quickly calculate the reward that belonged to the character. Time missed faster than it seemed, and the satisfied administrator stretched the young adventurer well-deserved award. Looking at the brilliant coins, he immediately encouraged. though he was surprised how generously he was rewarded. He characterized the charming girl for her excellent service. The young traveler expressed his passionate words, from which she instantly splashed away from embarrassment. The girl sadly asked if the character was going to go home. But the guy decided to stay and said that he still had a little time, so he would like to discuss a new task. She was glad that she could spend a little time with an attractive guy. Fleur offered Haruka to pick up the most relevant task for him. Haruka arranged it, and Fleur promised to solve everything as soon as possible. Waiting for the administrator, Harao was thinking that he still could not calm down after killing the count. It's been a few days since the evening, but there was no news about the incident. He was interested in what happened to a girl who helped him escape. Soon the cheerful girl returned to the place, and instantly embarrassed the look of the young adventurer. Usually in such situations, a blush on her face expressed his inner excitement, because her young mind could not calmly perceive such signs of attention. Laura asked not to put her in an uncomfortable position, but Crack with a smile assured that she did not even think about it, and she had nothing to worry. The young adventurer suddenly changed the topic and asked if Fleur heard about the murder of the aristocrat. Judging by the girl's reaction, Karaki immediately realized that this question was a surprise for Fleur. The girl in the reception whispered that it was secret information, and only a few people in the whole city knew about murder in the council. Therefore, such conversations should be conducted with extreme caution. Flora asked in character from where he learned about the incident. Harao was surprised that the situation was secret, and replied that he did not remember exactly, but he heard about it somewhere. It suggested that if Fleur knew about it, then other adventurers are probably involved. However, Fleur immediately denied this assumption. He said that government officials appeared and began to ask newcomers in the guild. They also initiated the investigation to find out whether one of the members of the Authorists' Guild is related to the murder. Fleur warned that this information could not be disclosed because it is extremely secret and is associated with great risk. Trying to distract, Flora said in a calm voice that she chose the most appropriate task for Crack. The guy became interested in the proposed tasks and asked for details. Flora proudly noted that all tasks were specially selected by a professional registrar, and this person is herself. I thanked her for such careful care and decided to review the task later. At this point, Flurick confessed that he considers Herok a little different from other adventurers. Flurick said that usually adventurers rarely express their gratitude for such things, behaving quite roughly. It surprised Haruka, but he noted that there was nothing much gratitude for the care. It is elementary human courtesy. Fleur blushed with awkwardness, and Crack confessed that he had never felt such kindness before. Flores shone with inconvenience. The wonderful administrator quietly noted that if there were more such adventures from Crack, this work would be pleased daily. Goku did not completely feel the girl's words, but Fleur responded that she was simply thinking aloud, and wondered what task she would perform Crack. The guy asked a little time to reflect on his decision. Yos had to choose from a variety of tasks. The honorary mission to remove the church and buy goods for it, restore its damaged roof, or help unload coal in the forge. The third task was to talk to the summer residents of the city, and Hikar confessed that none of these tasks caused him interest, because they were all too simple and uninteresting. In the end, Hikaru went far beyond the city to accomplish the task to catch a red rabbit. Flora explained that these rabbits are characterized by a high level of perception and a high speed, which makes them extremely difficult to win and catch. Having examined a small area, the Haruka was able to detect a small animal and came to it without much difficulty. This was made possible by the skill of hiddenness, so the red rabbit did not feel the presence of a person. The task was to catch this strange monster. For each hare promised a basic reward of 10,000 jalons. The number of caught rabbits was not limited. Hikar immediately realized that this was the perfect task for him. Herrick, truth be told, did not desire to take a knife again to kill someone. But now he had a task that had to be accomplished, and the young adventure-seeker decided to leave his foremost and doubts behind. The red rabbit did not even feel pain from a lightning attack when a sharp sword provided him with painless death. After the murder of a rabbit Hikar, a powerful magical splash felt it, who has confused him. If he possesses the same force, then there is undoubtedly in the world someone else with the same abilities. There was a rule in this world. By killing a creature, a person increased the level of their soul. Hikar realized that this happened to him after he destroyed the red rabbit. Hikar realized that he could earn points by raising his level. However, he has not yet decided how best to use them, because he kept his points without a clear strategy. Deciding to leave the question for later, he had to go back to adventure or guild. The journey back seemed short, and soon Hikaru was already walking through the streets of the city, surrounded by numerous buildings. Due to his excellent ability to move unnoticed, Hikaru has successfully completed many tasks. Now his goal is to earn enough for life and wait for the noise around the murder in the council. Hikaru heard how two patrolmen talked about this murder of the count. They discussed that some information appeared, although not quite reliable, that the crime was already revealed. Slowing the step, Hikaru listened carefully to every word, and was surprised when one of the patrolmen convinced the partner that the killer of the count had already been caught. The chicken was surprised when he heard from the patrolman that the killer of Earl Ahork had already been caught. This aroused great curiosity. Who did they actually catch if he is the killer of the Earl himself? Ryu realized that time was not waiting. He urgently needed to gather more information about this situation. The young adventurer was so immersed in his thoughts that he did not even notice the words of Flora. The girl was offended by such indifference and asked dissatisfied why Hikaru did not listen to her at all. Hikaru apologized for his inattention and asked the girl to repeat. Fleur was indignantly noted that the evaluation of the caught red rabbit takes time, so the reward will have to wait. It surprised Hikaru, and he asked why it was so difficult. The old man who came carefree explained that he would align the horn, surpassing the guild of alchemists and pharmacists, would take some time. Flora was greeted with him, calling him Ken. The stranger acknowledged that the horn is an outstanding model for which the market price has not yet been determined. Hikaru did not understand anything, and asked Flora who this man was. Ankin himself answered the question, calling himself just a fan. Hikaru seemed a little strange. Due to his ability to perceive, Hikaru was able to learn about the status of the appraiser. It turned out that he was 211 years old. He has a 51st rank and an accessible score of 53 units. It was a little upset by Hikaru, and it seems that Unsen understood it, asking if the adventurer wanted to know something else. However, Hikaru replied that everything was fine, and decided to think about it later. The team realized that this old man on Ken has great power and has similar skills. However, its level of power is much higher, and it also has the ability to resolve conflicts. Gru realized that the old man was able to open a soul board, which he had not yet managed to cope. And thanks to this amazing ability, he was able to collect all 7 souls. Hikaru decided that once the old man had such abilities and access to many souls, he may be a master of Traveler's Guild. He noticed Hikaru's gaze and asked why he was looking as if a goal before him. Hikaru explained that he did not intend to offend, just wondered how much time it took to evaluate the rabbit. The old man with confidence promised to do it quickly and report the results in the evening. Cancer was surprised that everything happened faster than he expected. However, UNNC managed to pick up the rabbit in advance and thanked the Flora before leaving. Hikaru asked Fleur if she finished her work today. The girl replied that the rest of the day is completely free, and if the Hikaru needs help in something, she is ready to put her shoulder. Hikaru confessed that he had a small personal question for Fleur. The girl clearly did not expect such a question, so she wondered if it was a good moment for such a conversation. The ruler felt too embarrassed because of the proposal, so Hikaru decided to take advantage of the moment and stroll through the city while there was still an opportunity. Walking through the streets of the city, Hikaru considered news about the invitation he received in the Traveler's Guild. The Flora may know something about it. Roof felt someone's gaze and realized that they were watching him. Most likely these were guys from Traveler's Guild. It was undoubtedly a Trainenko with his comrades, and they seemed to be intending to create problems. The hand realized that I needed to come up with a plan of action urgently. Picker decided to take advantage of his detective skills to gain an advantage over opponents. Suddenly turning for the horn, Chonenko was pleased that his goal was in a dead end and clenched his weapon more firmly. Once upon a time, the Tronko and the boys were shocked when it turned out that there was no Hikaru in a dead end. Trenko broke up and ordered his comrades to search every corner, not even suspecting that Hikaru was right in front of him. Hikaru decided not to put into a fight with brave adventurers, and to leave the place of events unnoticed. There was simply no time for senseless clashes. Thanks to Hikaru's map, he found everything he needed. They agreed to meet Flora in a cozy cafe with incredible landscapes. Akira doubted a little about the choice of his clothes, which was not quite suitable for such places. Soon, Flora appeared and thanked Hikaru for patience. Flora, passionate and a little excited, sincerely apologized for late. Her hurry was so obvious that her face was filled with a blush. Hikaru was fond of the girl's appearance. Her charming pink dress emphasized the natural beauty. Hikaru confessed that it was a rarity to see Flora without the uniform of an adventure guild worker. Acknowledged that the Flora looked incredible. Her cheeks sewed again, and she thanked her for a compliment. Sitting at the table, Hikaru expressed his desire to ask Flory questions. The team reassured that it was nothing serious, and he just wanted to know the truth about one event. The girl wondered and asked if she realized that Hikaru invited her to the cafe for treating. It was no coincidence. Flora was a little upset, and said that she is only a simple person who can share useful information with newcomers in the guild. Haraku suggested Flower to get acquainted with the menu, promising to buy everything she wanted. In response, Flower, a little annoyed, agreed. Flower soon decided on her choice and asked if he could order it. Hikaru assured her that he was ready to pay for any decision. The girl was happy to expect the opportunity to taste free treats, and confessed that she had long dreamed of trying this delicious drink. Hikaru decided it would be a gift for her. In a few minutes, the waitress came and thanked for her patient. The fruit strip looked quite attractive, but the Hikaru was very surprised to see 2 tubes in a glass. Fleur proposed to join it and taste the fruit strip. Hikaru was getting rid of this idea, but Fleur insisted, noting that the Hikaru did not have the choice. It is necessary to show courage and drink with it. Flary, a little upset, asked if Hikaru was not interested in Hikaru. In the end, the young traveler thought and still agreed to the girl's offer. Hikaru was the first to boldly took one of the tubes and stated that he was ready to try. Fleur was unable to hold back emotions, and the blush on her cheeks issued embarrassment. However, she soon took a tube and prepared to enjoy the delicate fruit taste of the strip together. The fascinating moment of the highest proximity between young people was embarrassed by Hikaru. He felt the face burning from the heat, but tried to hold back his emotions. Hikaru was enthusiastically noted the wonderful taste of the fruit drink, and the Flora Grey agreed with it. However, both at this point thought about another. The Flora enjoyed the taste and suggested that you continue drinking together. Hikaru no longer felt shame and immediately agreed. After a wonderful fruit drink ended, Hikaru decided to go to business and ask a little straight. Flora agreed and promised to listen carefully to his questions. Flora warned that the question of her place of residence would be inappropriate. Hikaru hurried to assure her that it was not necessary to worry and promised to avoid personal questions. All these tricks were female, and this is what was upset by Hikaru did not show interest in her life. He said he heard that the killer of Earl Amoxa was already captured, and it was this news that demanded a discussion. Flower's face expression was clear that she did not want to discuss such serious topics. So she just asked where Hikaru learned about this news. Hikaru explained that he accidentally listened to the conversation of 2 patrolmen who discussed the topic. However, Flower did not believe him, noting that such information was kept secret. Hikaru asked who really killed the Count, but Flower replied that even if she wanted to disclose it, Flora apologized to the Hikaru for not helping him, and he only in vain spent his time. The pen asked not to worry and apologized for her perseverance. A young traveler has decided that it makes no sense to discuss it anymore. But Flora did not rest why Hikaru was so persistently interested in this issue. Hikaru explained that his close friend had a terrible relationship with this Count. To be more precise, the Earl pursued him a friend, constantly creating a lot of problems. Kuru admitted that he was very worried, so it is important for him to know all the details of the detention of the thief. Flora hesitated a little, but thanked Hikaru for his frankness. As a result, Flora revealed that the killer was the one who first came across the body of the Count. The attacker was immediately sent to the royal court, where in 3 days he will decide his fate. Hikaru was satisfied with at least some information. Flora, tasting in fragrant tea, added with sadness that, unfortunately, that's all she could share. Hikaru sincerely thanked the charming Flora for her help. Then the adventurer realized that if the criminal was found the one who found the body, it means that they are accused of the girl who helped him. Hikaru felt guilty, though it was obvious that it was pointless to blame this girl in the murder of the Earl. Hikaru realized that he had to hurry now, because it was time to save the girl who helped him escape that night. 2 carefree sentries were waiting for their duty, hoping that nothing would happen. I didn't plan to drink quietly first, and then go home to relax. The partner was extremely worried about his service. However, the more experienced partner reassured him, convincing that all his anxieties were in vain and everything would be fine. Due to his ability to be invisible, Hikaru felt quite confidently even next to the guards. However, he didn't think he would ever return to the place where he committed the murder. Before coming here, Hikaru examined the security post and the center for hold, but never found a girl he rescued that night. It is likely that it is still a rest in the ward. Hikaru instantly noticed how the number of guards in his path increases. It was a reliable sign that he chose the right direction. The main task was to find out what room the girl is in. Unfortunately, all the doors were locked, and Hikara concluded that the ability to unite the castles could be needed. Walking through the corridor and thinking about how to open the door and find the right room, he felt that every step could tell him a solving. There was no suspicious room in the room, so the guard tried to reassure his four-legged friend. It may seem that the cause of the dog's anxiety was just hunger. When the guard disappeared around the corner, Hikaru was satisfied with his success in penetrating the room. But it is this situation that confirmed for him the amazing power of the dog's smell. And especially in specially trained animals, Hikaru showed ingenuity, taking advantage of the dog's ability to distinguish odors. He first stood at the door and deactivated his camouflage skill, leaving his aroma. When the dog caught this smell, Hikaru quickly activated the skill again, and went unnoticed by knocking the guard out of the trail. The whole situation was extremely dangerous, but Hikaru was glad to avoid trouble. It was now important to find the room as soon as possible. Looking at the room, GIK Rum drew attention to the huge number of books on the spectacular bookshelf. From curiosity, a young adventure seeker chose one book from a shelf that was an exciting story about adventures, decorated with quite refined illustrations. The books were similar to each other, and the whole room was reminiscent of a place that belonged to a boy who was fond of adventure stories. Although the excessively sophisticated interior of the room did not correspond to the idea of a supporter of such stories and did not take place in a holistic picture, Hikude decided to find out why it was possible. After looking at the room, Hikude noticed a dress identical to the one that he was looking for. This meant that he was exactly in her room. Now it was only necessary to find the mistress. However, it seemed that this room was not used for a long time, which indicated that the arrested girl was held in a completely different place. Suddenly, steps were heard again in the hallway. The two guards with whom the Hikar met at the beginning returned. One of them yawned and complained about severe fatigue. Instead, his colleague, more responsible, addressed him with a question. The relaxed guy confessed that he heard his colleague's dispute with his superiors on the investigation. The responsible also replied that he did not understand why his partner was talking, but it was quite interesting. To think that the one who found the body, the killer, looked rather senseless. The river realized that the guards were discussing the arrested girl. One of them, sighing, complained that they were stuck here because of her, although they should soon return to the capital. In the conversation of Hikaru, he learned that the girl was locked in a sinister basement. So now, instead of checking all the rooms in a row, they only need to find a basement. Soon, Hikaru carefully approached the stairs leading down, and now tried to go unnoticed to get into the basement. Once on the ground floor, after a while, Hikar found the entrance to the basement where the girl had to be detained. At the entrance, only one guard duty, so sleepy that he would hardly notice the Hikar, even if he did not use the skill of hidden movement. But it turned out that the door to the basement was locked, and now it was necessary to find the right key, which was probably somewhere above. As he rising, Hikaru heard strange sounds. In the conversation, they continued to joke about girls who are often found in local taverns. Meanwhile, Hikaru cursed both guards in his thoughts, and especially those who enclosed him with the basement. And here's a funny who complained about an unsuccessful date a minute ago, realized that it was time to check the captive. The guard at the entrance got the key to the basement, and Hikaru was convinced that they were driving from him, because he would soon be in a difficult position. At the same time, Hikar not noticed that the guards were completely without armor, and everything should go according to the plan. Fast strikes would easily neutralize the careless guards. This decision seemed unexpected even by Hikar himself. The guy realized that in fact he was going to seriously kill two innocent people just because he got into this difficult situation. Meanwhile, the guards were already approaching, step by step down the short stairs to the basement. Hikaru squeezed his dagger pen, convincing himself of determination. One thing remained in the head: to act quickly, forgetting the doubts about the murder. Breed by fear for his own life, the young adventure seeker felt a powerful adrenaline tide that mixed with the raging excitement. Ready to strike deadly strikes, Gikarao gathered all his decisive potential. An unpredictable situation has occurred unexpectedly. She turned to one of the guards and reported that she learned of his unpleasant details from some Istoma. The girl accused the fan of constantly changing the girls and meet several at the same time. The annoyed guard denied everything, but sounded uncertain. The guard, which was accused of betrayal, noted that the girl was so indignant that she came with a knife in her hands, preparing for a conversation. Nervous, he asked the maid to postpone the knife and promised to discuss everything. Both guards changed their mind to go to the basement and went up, which was already comfortable for the murder of Hikra. The young adventurer looked carefully from the corner to make sure that the guards really forgot about the service and focused on the maid. It was a real gift from the fate itself. Hikar did not seek to kill someone. While the guards argued with the maid, and one of them certified her eternal love, Hikaru was able to slip unnoticed from the narrow corridor leading to the basement. Hikar also heard the maid. He continued to blame her lover of betrayal and deception. But now he noticed that the key to the basement was in his eyes, and no one guarded him. Suddenly, Hikaru swept unpleasant awareness. He was on the verge of committing the murder again. Hikaru reminded himself that he was on the verge of murder of innocent people, and now it would torment his rest of his life. From now on, he will constantly have to live with the burden of such decisions that will pursue him at every step. Eventually, Hikaru realized the inevitability of certain circumstances. If something goes wrong, he will have to be prepared for the most radical actions. That is why it is important to make every effort to avoid unnecessary victims. The young adventure seeker realized that nowadays it is not time to delve into problems. Now it is more important to find someone who is captured. Once in the basement, Hikar drew attention to a charming girl. The Louvier was surprised to see someone except the guards and asked who the guy was. Hikara explained that he was the one he helped to escape from the balcony, and it was he who killed the count. So, in order to thank, he came to release her. Louvier was not satisfied with the daring act of Hikar and continued to read the book peacefully. The girl explained that she was grateful for help, but unfortunately, she would not be able to escape from this cage. Hikara realized that it was not just a cage, but a real magic prison. He could not even touch the lattice. Louvier confirmed that this is true. This cage was built by the head of the Guild of Alchemists, and only he is able to open it. The fact that an ordinary person will become a key to this dungeon was a complete surprise for Hikar. Louis explained that, of course, you can simply destroy the head of the Guild Alchemists. However, it is unlikely that Hikar is capable of this. The young adventurer asked why he is so sure of it. The girl noted that Hikar's thoughts are too clean, so he is not able to simply kill an innocent person. The girl's act was struck by Hikar, and he wondered if she wanted to leave prison. After all, she saved him, sacrificing herself. However, Miss Liuvi said her actions had a good reason, and she did not regret her choice. The team asked in surprise why Liuvier did not seek to be released. The girl replied with indifference that she had already completed her task because Hikar killed the count. Hikaru began to solve all the nuances of history and asked the girl whether she was by accident the daughter of the same count he killed. The prediction of a young traveler was accurate because the girl confirmed her affinity with the dead. Hikar killed a strange case from the Panthelic. He killed the girl's father, but she does not take it close to her heart. However, the Louvier asked Hikar not to condemn her so strictly. The girl asked if he ever felt sharpened in the room or said as by the way. Her voice trembled from the insult, and she confessed that she no longer remembered when she last went to Vilna Street. Hikar realized that the girl was constantly under house arrest. The Louvier explained that her father was afraid of her, but at the same time he could not get rid of her because of his high social status. All this story is stunned. Ovi expressed the opinion that the Garrick still did not understand the purpose of the head of the Guild Alchemists created this cage and locked in it an ordinary girl. Carol suddenly confessed that everything would be clear now, and suddenly lit up with magical light. Hikaru retreated from the cage in surprise, and without holding back emotions, unsensibularly expressed his feelings. Hikar felt the extremely strong magic saturates his excitement. The Louvier explained that it has huge reserves of magical energy, but its capabilities are limited only by destructive magic. The charming daughter of the dead count reduced her magical power, and thanked Hikar for such an unexpected visit. She confessed that she did not expect that someone would want to help her in such a hopeless position. Miss Louvier smiled sincerely and confessed that the appearance of Hikar was a real surprise for her. The young adventurer asked who exactly accused Louvier of the murder of her father. The girl said she was accused because she was the only one who was found at the crime scene, and they decided that all the wine was on her. 3 days later, she will be sent to the capital where the king will declare his sentence. However, in fact, it intends to send it to expedition forces because the government has learned about its powerful abilities. Under the guise of a terrible crime, the murder of their own father, they plan to use it on the battlefield against opponents. The Louvier noted that she would continue to kill on the front until she died like a simple mercenary. This is the punishment that awaits her. Juviar explained that this information can tarnish the history of the kingdom of Pansini, so everything will be kept secret. This prospect seemed horrible for Hikar, so he decided to clarify something. The young traveler asked if he realized that it was because of her incredible magical power that the king wanted to make her a killer, and use it for his own purposes. Uvia replied that, if not different, at least she would know that someone was taking care of her, even if she was only about her own interest. After all, she said, she does not feel it to any living creature. Hikar realized that the girl had already regained her fate and had no desire to fight. Hikar could not understand why the girl seemed so easily, and did not seek to overcome her future. Louvière, meanwhile, advised Hikar as soon as possible to get out of the basement, as guards should appear soon, which will be a threat to him. Gikra constantly thought why his desire to live freely so different from the desires of the Louvière. But the hostage stood on her own, demanded that he went away and forget about it forever. At the same moment, the young adventure-seeker mentioned many books with stories about the adventures that filled the girl's room. This further strengthened his doubts that the Louvière really abandoned freedom and no longer strives for a carefree life. Take care of yourself. This is a very good advice. The KRU was convinced that he would never forget the name of a man who saved him from death. The young adventurer introduced himself and with a polite smile asked the girl to do the same. The captive began to be markedly nervous, and its beauty could not hide anxiety, which gradually reflected on the face. In the end, the girl burst into tears and confessed that her name is Miss Libya Lovey, the heir to Carrot County. But you can just turn Libya. Hikar felt he had won the first time to persuade Libya to leave the dungeon. The young adventurer boldly stated that it needs her, and it caused a real flurry of emotions in the girl, to which she exclaimed that all this was wrong, and she ordered not to speak no longer, because if the Hikar says at least the word, she may have an illusion that she would still be saved, although the situation is hopeless. Olivia stated that it is enough for her to be dead. She didn't need anything else. Hikara gladly noted success in the conversation, because he heard exactly what he hoped for. The adventurer stated that even if Libya has already resigned himself to his destiny, he still intends to save her. Hikar admitted that he really did not want to kill innocent people, so he would not do it. The young adventurer promised to release the girl from prison without killing anyone. Libya explained that such an opportunity would happen in 3 days when it will be transported to the capital. He decided to intervene despite her desire. Remembering how he suddenly entered her life, killing her father, the adventurer decided to act as decisively, and this time, excessively excited, Libya asked if she can really trust the Hikar, and maybe her desire is too obsessive. The young man asked the captive to calm down, reminding that it was he who thanks her life. The girl no longer looked as calm and indifferent as at first. Now Libya sincerely sought salvation. The change in the mood and thoughts of Libya did not go unnoticed to the Hikar. He became determined and promised to make every effort to release a charming girl from her imprisonment. And finally, the cameras of the camera opened, and the room included noisy guards, which did not forget to check the condition of captured. Among them was the commander, who reminded the subordinate to perform his duties on time and not be distracted during the duty. The commander advised his subordinate not to leave the post, but to read books as a way to take time and stay still. The next one justified, promising that this would not happen again. The guards were convinced that Libya did not leave her place but just sleep, and continued the conversation. The commander, becoming more friendly, advised the subordinate not to worry about his friend, who had problems with the maid, because such situations are usually quickly solved. Olivia, of course, could not sleep, because new emotions simply flooded it. All the girl's thoughts were about escape. Meanwhile, Hikar realized that there was little time, because there was only 3 days to prepare the bold rescue of Olivia. Gloria looked at the reports of the adventures performed with delight when something unexpected attracted her attention. She hurried to find out what happened. Gloria heard rumors about a newcomer, captured by beautiful floor decoration. The embarrassed administrator assured that Hikar is not at all. Gloria demanded to know the details. However, referring to her employment, Flora barely resorted to peace and went to her rooms. Meanwhile, Hikar decided that before rescuing Libya, he needed to act, and the first task was to make money. After all, without them it is not possible to live quietly and hide the girl after salvation. Once in the Guild of Adventurers, he was surprised, seeing so many administrators and other girls, and suggested that apparently the Flora had a day off. The Wadag thought of what the Guild of the Adventures hopes. hiring so many attractive girls to their staff? Is there statistics that claim that the chances of surviving adventures are growing if magic administrator is working in the guild? Of all the available tasks, only 2 were attracted by the first: to remove in the church for 25 Jalayan, the second, to buy products for a summer grandfather, having received 15 Jalayan for it. Everything seemed too simple, and the reward is too small. Hyoka learned that travelers have many ranks, the highest, A, and the lowest, G. Of course, the highest rank was a rarity. Due to his D rank, Hika could not take difficult tasks, and the guildmaster still evaluated a red-horned rabbit. The friendly Glory noted the young traveler and thought whether he was looking for new tasks. The girl turned out to be modest and asked to review the Hikar guild card, and then wondered if she had any requests. Hikar wondered why she was talking to him at all, and noticed in her hands lists of new ads. Deciding that he was not threatened with him, Hikaru handed over to his young beauty his sealed card and eagerly began to wait for the next step of Gloria. The crazy girl carefully studied the data on the guild card and concluded that the situation was comfortable. Gloria was disappointed, learning that such a common man was the kind of adventurer who was persecuted by Flora. Hikar immediately reduced his assessment of his attractiveness for herself. After all, he had no noble origin and did not possess any family name. His abilities were at the level of the average person. However, he was definitely not the one who would be angry. After reading the information, Gloria returned a guild card. In the end, Gloria came to the conclusion that this ordinary boy has something exceptional, and decided to find out what it could be. In addition to the blessings of civilian status, Hikuri had some gifts. As an official employee of the adventurers Julius, she had to answer the question, especially since the Flora was probably already aware of the situation. Gloria smiled insightfully listening to Hikaru, who, suspecting her in insincerity, assured that she had no talent except the guild card. She perceived him as an ordinary man, but her female intuition suggested that something was hidden in it. Gloria decided that no doubt this adventure hides many secrets. And it was Flora who advised Hikar not to disclose his true abilities. The imagination of Gloria did not know the limits, and she decided that her girlfriend Flora found an unusual adventure seeker. Lake Rue was so special that Flora decided to temporarily restrain her blessing. Gloria convinced herself of the correctness of her assumptions. She was also convinced that Hikar was already fascinated by her wrestling and attention. Politely suggested to accept one of his requests. Gloria explained that the task is to transmit a message, which is why Hikar will be able to cope with him very quickly, because it is perfect for civilians, such as he. Hikar asked if everything was really so easy. The task was to deliver the letter to the Manga Kelbek to Bond City, for which they promised a reward of 200 Gylans. Hikar decided it was a great opportunity, and promised to fulfill it today. Gloria suggested discussing the details of the task with him. The girl, radiating the charm and without removing the smiles from her face, suggested waiting for her near the registration rack. Gloria thought that a mysterious man named Hickory probably has a gloomy past because he was so secret. Leaving the adventurers from the guild, Hickory was glad to have a new task that promised a good profit. In addition, this task did not seem too complicated at first. However, it turned out that the path of a young adventurer was still not difficult, and he had to show all his skills in the art of unnoticed. Hikuro was in the appropriate place located on the coast. It is strange that someone lives here in general, because there was an unbearable stench around. Hikaru turned on the regime of invisibility, not to worry about the attack of numerous bats that inhabited this dark place. Moving in the dark among a flock of flying bats, Hikar had doubts whether he could light a flashlight in this hostile environment. But soon, a whole Kazian broke out of the place through the light and noise of 2 men who patrolled the territory. They discussed a meeting with a client who offered a good job for decent money. One of them even noted that it would be easier to kill the goal and take the necessary than to do theft. During the second interview, we reminded them that there was no need to kill someone in this task. The second man agreed, emphasizing that their boss did not approve of blood spill. 2 patrols paid attention to strange footprints, but decided that these are orphans, which will have been increasingly erupted around. Without seeing this threat, they continued patrol. Hikar was dissatisfied with the fact that, even having masking skills, it still leaves traces, which is very bad. Hikar decided to be much careful to avoid repetition of mistakes in the future. That is why, while in the city, he again checked how effectively his masking skills work. During the study of Hikaru found that preventing the detection of life, magic, and blocking them allowed to escape only from people with such abilities. It turned out that there is a certain blockade of perception that makes a person invisible to others, even when it stands quite close. However, Hikaru should wave or clap his hands in front of people, as he was immediately noticed. But it was only necessary to look as the focus of attention was lost, and people disappear. And if you add the blessing of the god of squeezing, the Hikar will cease to be almost invisible. Hikar decided that it was not necessary to turn on the light, because it would spread far and reflect from different surfaces. Therefore, it is better not to use the flashlight at all. Meanwhile, two talkative patrolmen decided to go to Kelbek as soon as possible, because he is a very harsh boss and can be angry with their late. Hikaru immediately recognized. Two guys continued to discuss the intricacies of the future mission and the decision of their demanding boss. They are gradually moving away, and the young adventure seeker is becoming more and more interested, as if fascinated by their conversation. Although the appearance and manner of communication of these two was clear, that there is probably something that Hikar still does not know. The main building around which Petrolimes walked was carefully guarded. Two guards were constantly on duty at the front door. In the end, two patrolmen got to their boss Kelbek and immediately felt his anger. Kelbek reproached his subordinate for 5 minutes. One of them immediately accused the partner of being late because of a meeting with a girl. The dispute broke out between them, but Kelbek immediately ordered to calm down. The angry boss decided not to understand which of the two guys was guilty, and stated that both would be responsible for their late. However, Kelbek suddenly laughed, enjoying the fear of his subordinates, and announced that they actually coped with the task quite well. The boys have easily exhaled and calmed down a little. The partners asked permission to do their business, while the chief was in good humor. Kelbek gave them good to leave, and reminded them that the next time it should be more careful. When both boys left the boss's office, Hikar also decided to demonstrate his perseverance. This young adventure seeker turned off his ability to unnoticed, and simply greeted the mysterious Kelbek. The owner immediately broke out of anger and asked the stranger who he was. Hikra apologized for his unexpected appearance, explaining that he did not want to make any unnecessary noise, and even more so, to conflict. Kelbek tried to understand who the stranger was, and how he managed to penetrate into the room, bypassing the security. Meanwhile, Hikar pulled out of his letter from his pocket, and explained that he was addressed to Kelbek. The landlord suspected that it could be an intricate magical trap capable of destroying it. Kelbek remained tense without lowering the dagger. Realizing how dangerous the situation, Hikar asked if Kelbek ordered to do. Hikara explained that he was only a messenger and he needs to pass a letter to a man named Kelbek. He expressed his hope that he did not confuse the address, because he wanted to receive his reward for this work. Kelbek began to get annoyed on himself, not understanding why he feels such a fear of a regular boy. In the end, he hid the dagger and went up to lift the letter. Quickly unfolding the scroll, Kelbek saw that the message was addressed to the Adventurers Guild, and the level of threat in his thoughts was instantly declined. Reading the letter, Kelbek realized that the gilding of the adventurers chose such a strange messenger. After all, Hikar did not give the impression of an experienced adventurer. Kelbek noted that he had only one question, but Hikar was the first to interrupt him, and noted that Kelbek probably wanted to know how he found himself here. Kelbek struck such boldness, and he demanded that Hikar's explanations. As the owner of the house, Kelbek suggested, and rather ordered Hikar to sit at the table, judging by his tone. Hikaru asked his name from his messenger. In response, Kelbek asked to tell in detail who was agreed with the agreement for the passage through this place. The master's question was not quite clear for the young adventurer. Hikaru assured that he did not do any arrangements or similar, just took and went on. This answer caused indignation and embarrassment. I decided to leave everything as is, and not to sharpen the situation. Meanwhile, Kelbek rushed to the front door to find out how this arrogant young man could get to his house. Kelbek turned to the guards at the door, asking if they saw how a strange young man had passed. However, the guards said with confidence that no one could slip past them, and that they did not leave their places for a minute. Kelbek was indignant because of the carelessness of his guards who simply kicked the uninvited guest. This was introduced into the boys at the door because none of them really noticed a stranger and could understand what was happening. Kelbek returned to the room, thinking that if the Hikar was actually sent from the gilding of the adventures, he would certainly be stopped at the entrance and sent back. And in general, no one before appeared in this room so unexpectedly. Kelbek acknowledged that his experienced guards did not notice how Hikaru passed by, and wondered what he wanted to talk about. Hikaru asked if his imperceptible occurrence of a simple accident in the work of protection was not noticeable. Kelbek replied with annoyance that maybe today was really not in favor of his guards. But he was surprised. How did this young adventurer dare to call himself on the carpet before the revered citizen? Hikar thanked the recognition of his skill of concealment and asked to sign a special form. The book was already tired of the company of a young and cheeky adventure seeker, and hastened the necessary document in a hurry, then put the seal. Hikar thanked her for it. After that, the young adventure seeker decided to say goodbye to the owner and return to the guild on the award. However, unexpectedly, Kelbek suggested that guests stay a little more. Kelbek asked a calm tone at Hikar, who he really considers himself. Hikar briefly stated that Kelbek probably a magician, or a member of some secret society with a similar status. Then he immediately wondered how much his assumptions correspond to the truth. Kelbek left the question unanswered, and Hikar said that he was not interested in it as a whole. Kelbek explained that Hikar seemed to not understand the Hikar. He needs to be better aware who is talking to. Hellebeck explained that outsiders call them the Guild of Thieves. Although they can be considered ordinary theft, they never steal in ordinary people. Hikar replied that it was clear, because otherwise they would not speak calmly, but already fought, trying to kill each other. In the end, Kelbek seemed surprisingly good. After all, the leader of the Guild of Thieves has promised that if Hikar will ever need his help, you can just mention his name, and Kelbek would surely help in any situation. At the same time, Kelbek warned that no help from him would be free of charge, so you should think carefully about your request before you ask. Hikar advised his new acquaintance not to spoil a relationship with the Guild of Adventurers, because it will be much more profitable for him. Hikar came out, and Kelbek confessed to himself that this young guy was a little frightened. At first glance, it is clear that it is very capable, and it is worth looking carefully at him. Meanwhile, in the guild Gloria, who serves them, mentioned Hikaru. She was very interested in how his task was moving. The girl knew well that he was now in the Guild of the Thieves, and his affiliation with the Adventurers Guild would not help him here. Gloria was looking forward to when representatives of the Guild of Thieves would contact her. She hoped that it was at this point that she would appear in order to save the young adventurer Hikar, which would give his gratitude forever. While it was time, Gloria invited the next adventurer's rack and heard a familiar voice of Hikar, who was wondering if everything was fine in the guild during his absence. He stated that he arrived reporting the task, providing a document signed to confirm his words. Then Hikaru noticed a strange expression of the girl's face and asked if she was fine with her. Gloria laughed instantly, explaining that she was simply immersed in thought. He asked if it was easy to meet Kelbek. The adventurer was reluctant to share the details, noting that there was nothing supernatural during the meeting. Gloria diligently tried to hide her astonishment in the image of a frivolous girl, and with seeming joy said that he was very pleased for the success of Hikar. At the end of the settlement, girl handed Hikar a well-deserved award of 200 Elena, immediately reminding herself that Kelbek was the head of the Guild of Thieves, who controls the entire underworld. Now it remains a mystery how the usual look of the Hikar was so easy to meet with such a mysterious person. Then Hikar was habitually turned to Gloria, calling her Flores Nane, and said it was time to go on. Gloria was left with incredible interest in this young adventure seeker. Getting 200 guilins in one day was a great achievement, although it takes a lot more to rest. Guildbar distracted Hikar from thinking about money. Hikaru greeted the old Unsen, who, in turn, informed the adventurer of a favorable offer: the sale of a rabbit with red horns at a very good price. Hikaru was immediately interested in the amount that was incredible: 147,500 julins. Such a huge amount caused a young adventurer for a real admiration, because he could not even imagine that more than 140,000 could be obtained for this little beast. The guild card functioned as banking, enabling any adventurer to borrow funds in other guilds, if necessary. The old Uncan clarified whether he realized that Hikar wanted to take 47,000 with him, and leave the rest of 100,000 for storage in the guild. Hikaru confirmed his choice, enjoying the pleasant weight of the bag with money. Pleasingly surprised by the incredible value of red rabbits, Hikaru did not even dream of getting such a tremendous reward for such a simple task. But the main thing was that now he could not worry about monetary issues. Before leaving the Adventure Guild, Hikar decided to find out something and asked Old Ken if he could ask him several questions. Next to the red rabbit is completed the collection of the required amount to save the magic Libya. Now, there are only two important tasks in the Hikar. to learn more about the movement of Libya and to increase their level by 2 steps. In the thicket of the Hikaru forest, he realized that he had come across the perfect place where you could quietly hunt the monsters and gradually increase their level of skill. The day before, having received a generous reward for catching a red germinated rabbit, Hikaru decided to take advantage of U9 and ask the old man a few questions. The young traveler asked the leader of the guild whether there were dangerous monsters nearby, which should be avoided in order not to get into the mess. The cunning Unsen felt a hidden implication and asked why Hikaru was interested in it. Hikaru immediately guessed that the old UNNC felt something due to his extremely sharpened sensory. Therefore, he decided that he needed to be extremely cautious in dealing with him. Hikaru, trying to speak as convincingly as possible, explained that he should not approach such a monster because his purpose was just hunting in the woods a little time. He may have even considered the opportunity to delve into the depths of the forest itself. The young adventurer even spread his hands for persuasiveness, carefully noting that he just wants to know where to stay best to avoid 2 dangerous situations. It was unknown whether the old Ankin was believed by Hikra's words, but the head of the guild insisted it was always worth watching 4 types of monsters. Ken listed the monsters by the level of danger, noting the green wolf as the most dangerous. Next were the Pavniator B, the forest barbarian, and in the last place, Goblin. Hikaru, surprised, asked if goblins were so dangerous. The head of the Adventurers Guild has confirmed her assumption and told about a recent event. Not far from the settlement, one man faced Goblin, and that led to a real tragedy. It is well known what they say. If you see one goblin, there is a must. Have at least 300 somewhere. It is worth remembering. Harao realized that Goblin really pose a threat, and thanked Unana for the reservation. The young adventurer confessed that he was hearing about wandering bees and forest barbarians for the first time, and has no idea what monsters were. The old UNNC, looks like a wise teacher, explained that a roaming bee is a special bee with underdeveloped wings. Usually such bees move alone, but they can call comrades in just a second, and then they attack together. With regard to forest barbaric, it should be noted that this monster reaches at least 3 meters high and has 4 powerful hands. UNNC carefully described it as a one-eyed February predator with human likeness. At the same time, his skin is smooth, as if enclosed by muscles. Hikaru agreed that from such a description, he really looks like a real monster. You can just advise you to stay away from such monsters, and then everything will be fine. Hikaru thanked for important advice and wondered what places should be avoided in order not to come across these terrible creatures. The head of the Adventure Guild was clearly tired of this conversation. Exhaled it hard and advised him to simply not go deep into the forest and the foot of the mountains. Eastern Lake is equally dangerous. There is a huge number of different monsters who instantly attack anyone approaching the water. Hiku-I decided that he had already learned everything he needed, and not to raise suspicion of old Unin, thanked him for his help and was going to go to the forest. In order to achieve the best results on hunting, Hikaru immediately went to the Eastern Lake, which the old UNCC pointed out as the most dangerous place with an incredible number of monsters. Because of the limited time, the young traveler decided not to wait for the attack but to look for prey on his own. At the same time, Hikaru was well aware that it is not profitable for him to destroy small monsters now. This will only slow down its pace, taking away valuable time. Therefore, you need to focus on the search for dangerous monsters. The more they are destroyed, the faster its level will increase, opening more development points, which is the main priority. Hikra decided not to spend a lot of efforts on a large number of monsters, so he would avoid goblins and stray bees. These creatures are weak alone, and the battle with their numerous groups would take too much time and effort. Forest barbarians or green wolves remain the best choice for him. Recalling this a monster, Hikaru, having passed only a few meters, noticed near a large green wolf. He decided not to miss the opportunity to gain valuable experience and take advantage of this moment. The green wolf, seemingly threatening, was much larger than those that Hikar met before the collection of medicinal herbs. Questioning the dagger quickly, the young adventurer remembered that the green wolf has an extremely developed sense of smell, capable of catching smells up to 200 meters. Due to this, these powerful animals are always able to estimate the degree of danger and decide, escape, or attack. Hikar decided that his only and most valuable advantage in this battle is the ability to go unnoticed. It was because of this that he would be able to approach the green wolf unnoticed. Everything unfolded exactly according to Hikar's plan. The young adventurer silently squeezed to the green wolf, and gathering all his strength, plunged the blade dagger into the shaggy body down to the very sleeve. A giant beast issued the last deadly roar, and in a few minutes the green wolf agony stopped. Throughout this time, Hikar went unnoticed and was completely safe. Such a quick victory was made possible by Asakin's skill. However, this ability had a side effect. If the murder happened secretly, all the victim's pain returned to the killer. This effect did not wait long. Hikaru felt all the pain that had previously caused the green wolf, and it became an extremely unpleasant surprise for him. A few minutes later, the pain in the body began to subside, and Hikar decided to look out the window. To his surprise, he, killing only one green wolf, rose to a whole level. He could not also assume that such a little success would have such great consequences. At the same time, the young adventurer realized that the fear of murder had decreased significantly. There is no more excitement and anxiety before it. Everything happens almost automatically. Looking at his reflection on the bloody blade of the dagger, Hikaru realized that it became a habit. A person is really a creature that can get used to everything, even to murder, if it serves as a goal. The awareness of this was terrified by the young mind of Hikar, and he decided that he had to learn how to manage such passion, using it only when needed, not to become a monster like the inhabitants of this forest. Hikaru mentioned yesterday, when because of his own mistake and negligence almost killed the innocent. After that, he decided to set strict rules for himself so that this would not happen again. Take-Ru vied without hesitation to kill anyone if he decides to go for that. He also needs to be prepared for surprises using the skills. An important condition was that during a carefully designed plan, all possible situations should be thought out in advance. At the same time, the young adventurer realized that the ability to stay unnoticed was his key advantage in revealing any information. It was his trump card. Wiping the dagger against the grass, Hikaru decided to continue his journey in the same spirit. At this stage, Hikar reached the 8th level, which was already quite successful. However, he decided not to distribute the points of experience. Instead, he sought to earn as many points before dark. Hikar was convinced that if he continues in the same spirit, he would soon conquer the next level. Landing a little, Hikar decided to continue the search for monsters, thinking about whom he would come across. Suddenly, strange sounds, similar to the echo of the battle, were heard from the outside, as if someone had entered the duel with someone. The curiosity took the mountain over caution, and Hikar decided to find out what was really going on. Meanwhile, a group of brave travelers led a fierce battle with a crowd of fierce goblins. Despite their efforts, the number of enemies only grew, and later travelers were surrounded. The Pia's swordsman realized the complexity of the situation and asked Paul's healer to stay behind her. Their third girlfriend, the Priscilla archer, who, despite sharp arrows, also could not significantly change the course of the battle, was not suitable for the battle. Paula felt an incredible fear when a crowd of angry goblins surrounded them. She realized that now there was almost no chance of going out alive, and realized that it was not necessary to come here. She remembered how the Adventurers Guild immediately felt something wrong when the team, which consisted exclusively of women, offered to unite for a common adventure. The group of doubtful travelers planned to collect rare plants near the eastern lake. They offered to join them, because they believed that it would be easier and more fun. At that moment, Pia did absolutely correctly. She immediately refused and advised the boys to look for another satellite for the trip. But the leader of the male adventurers seekers promised a fantastic opportunity to make good money. It has become a turning point throughout history. Pia, who had long planned to update her equipment, thought about easy earnings. It is obvious that the sword has agreed to the proposal and began discussing financial conditions with new companions. Pia was satisfied with the conditions and immediately began to persuade her friends to support her. She stressed that this is a wonderful opportunity to improve their team's financial condition, because there is something lacking. Paul tried to refuse her friend and advised to consider a risky path well with strangers, but the decision was already made. Pia reminded Polly so that she did not forget why they became adventurers at all. Paulina immediately remembered. Their goal is to make money and support the needy villages. Pia happily noted that there were no obstacles then and should take any chance to achieve this goal. She asked about the opinion of Priscilla, but as always, the shooter remained outwardly indifferent, as if she were influenced by Marbab herbs. He explained that, having spent all the money earned on this mission, many villages will be happier and will be able to buy useful things. Paul agreed for the noble purpose of the trip, but warned him that on the eastern lake is very dangerous. But the bald man with a huge sword assured that it is not necessary to worry. Everyone knew for a long time there are no monsters on the eastern lake, and even if they are left, the head of the male detachment began to convince Paula that it is not necessary to worry. By combining the efforts of both teams, they will be able to overcome any enemy. And if you suddenly arise unforeseen circumstances, you can always promptly retreat and leave the forest. He made every effort to look friendly and attractive. The leader of the team promised that he would take care of and protect such a charming healer as Paul, and the young Paul, fascinated by the attractiveness of the young boy, agreed to go on a trip with her friends. However, it was later revealed that it was the greatest mistake in her short life. Now Paul undoubtedly regretted that she then agreed and could not give her friends from this senseless trip. After all, they are all trapped in death, without any chance of salvation. Despite their self-confidence and exaggeration of their own strength, the team of men desperately fought against numerous goblins. However, the forces were uneven, and the first received a serious wound with a giant arrow, with a bald man with a heavy sword. The men's adventurers were surprised when Goblini started using arrows. There was nothing like this at the beginning of the battle. It could only mean one thing. If arrows appeared, then the whole goblin family is here. While Paula continues to treat the wounded bald man, he asks what the presence of Goblin's family means. The wounded adventurer explains that it does not herald anything good, because their leader is probably somewhere nearby. Frightened adventure seekers realize that they would not be able to cope with a lot of goblins, especially under the leadership of their leader. So they had to immediately invent something for their own rescue. One of the adventurers, unfortunately, confessed that he just had time to meet meetings with charming adventurers, and here his plans were scattered on pieces. Lear reveals the secret feelings of a basist, and the case of the altarist, and, unfortunately, this happened this time. One of the adventurers asked the healers of Paula if she knew the true purpose of Goblin. Paula did not imagine where this conversation was leading, and honestly confessed that he knew nothing. The satellite with a tricky smile noted that the real goal of goblins is to reproduce. They are constantly seeking to capture women from the human tribe, forcing them to give birth to new goblins. Therefore, in this battle, the pretty women adventurers become the true goal of goblins. Gradually, Paula began to realize where this conversation was leading, and when she was grabbed by her hand, all the suspicions were confirmed. Her adventurer satellite said that she has already grown up and has to understand that she has no other choice. The villain assured that, having sacrificed Paula, everyone else would be saved. But even such a seemingly noble role did not bring any joy to the young healer. So she began to resist all her strength, although she had almost no chance. Meanwhile, the smart guys began to distract Pew and Priscilla so that they would not have time to react and try to help their unfortunate friend, who, according to their plan, had to be a salvation for everyone. Meanwhile, a frightened girl, who was drawn to the goblins' two guys, heard she was reminded of the duty of the true healer, to save others. And now it's time to make this call. The young body of the girlfriend was unceremoniously thrown to the ground, as if it were unnecessary, directly near the goblin. The goblins immediately responded to such an unexpected gift in the form of a beautiful healer, slowly approaching the field with surprise. The girl was petrified by fear, watching only the horrible sobbed teeth of the goblins, which gnasted in anticipation of pleasure. The joyful screams of Goblin resembled a horrible howl of Gian, and the doomed Paula realized that she had to never abandon adventures. After all, she could achieve everything she only wants in her life. She realized that the end was close. The healer remembered how she once dreamed of growing up, moving to a big city, meeting a good young man and combining their fates. Then it seemed as if she were on the right track. But now she understood what was naive. During the rest of her life, her fate will be devoted to the continuation of the kind of disgusting race of goblin. Another Paul, seeing the terrible monsters who rushed to her, realized that it was better to die than to doom herself to such a fate. The adventurer closed her eyes and walked the instant death with all her heart. Suddenly embarrassed, the girl is browned and lost the opportunity to respond properly. After all, she said goodbye to her free life. Evelyn did not want to give up such a prey as a young healer and continued to step on. Hikra asked Paul to stay behind and be careful. But, passionate about his heroism, the girl was not fully aware of what was happening around, and called her rescuer with a handsome man. The feeling of a sudden love storm swept Paul. She exclaimed that only she would reach Hikar. and suddenly rushed at him, surprised by such behavior. The young hero released from the arms of the excited healer and asked what had happened to her. However, colleagues expressed dissatisfaction because of Hikar's interference in other people's affairs. During the Adventures of Rage, it was stated that if the helpless healer sacrificed to the goblins, then all others will be able to escape from true enemies. Hikar finally realized what people he was dealing with, and began to understand who should be helped and who should be left unattended. The crew noted that it all looked not as a noble sacrifice, but rather as an escape of frightened guys who left a defenseless girl. The adventurer did not even try to justify himself, only noticed that there was nothing wrong with rescuing more useful and worthy people. Hearing this, Pia was indignant. Hikaru and Priscilla realized that the leader of the male team was thinking against the field, and were ready to take revenge immediately. However, the frightened adventurer asked what to do with all these goblins. Hikaru promised that the same herself were healed, which caused hysterical laughter in the sword. Suddenly, a loud and fierce roar was heard from the forest, which promised only trouble. The goblins screamed, began to rush from side to side, and then crumbled in a panic in different directions. Jikarus proudly admitted that everything happened exactly as he predicted, and suggested that the situation become increasingly dangerous as soon as possible. The team of adventure comrades became the first to rush to flee, without worrying too much about the fate of others. Hikar only cast them a contemptuous look, calling them shameful cowards. Priscilla and PA thanked Hikar sincerely for saving Paulo. However, the young adventurer only asked if everything was fine with them and whether no one was injured. It turned out that everything was well with the girls, and about Paul's condition, everyone believed that she could help herself as a healer and sorceress. She could not restrain his anger and stress, she shakes hard. The girl wondered if Hikar was going to go, because he warned of danger, and whether he was really confident in his abilities. The crew urged the girls to calm down and suggested that you think about the opportunity to borrow from their comrades. Hikara explained that he talked about the guys who cheated them and planned to leave them. If the rumors went, no detachment of adventurers would want to cooperate with them anymore. But only if they do not begin to spread these rumors on their own. Pius was not quite clear what he meant. Priscilla has quietly explained that it was a non-disclosure agreement. Pia immediately exclaimed that it was full of nonsense, but Hikaru confirmed the words of the archer. Hikara explained that this was necessary for their safety. Pius noted that two guys fled at once, and since they are ordinary stupid, they can do trouble. Hikar wondered if they were close friends, but the girls replied that they were only from their villages, so they should not focus on them. Texer was in no hurry to dive into the problems of other adventures, and stated that it was time for girls to solve their affairs, and he needed to take up their tasks. Remembering, Paula exclaimed that she did not want to part with her rescuer. Paula finally came up, and may not even remember what she had been doing recently. She introduced herself and asked Hikar to name her name. The new moon was not surprised by the strange behavior of the girl and immediately answered. But the annoying healer asked Hikar to accompany their group to the eastern lake. Pius also considered this idea wonderful, so she tried to find out the opinion of Priscilla. However, the archer again remained silent, squeezing only a vague sound that was perceived as consent. In the end, the young traveler could not stand the pressure of three magic girls and agreed to help. Hikara explained that he would follow a group of adventurers from afar, leaving them the freedom to move at their own pace. Paul's beloved eyes were filled with tears of disappointment, and she, in a trembling voice, asked if the Hikar would join them. The traveler felt that he was lacking in the strength to protect them all, but in the end he replied that he had already agreed to join them. All you have to do is make his decision and doubt. At this time, Hikaru found a reason not to be nearby, confessing that he was something embarrassing before other girls because of that awkward moment at the beginning of acquaintance with Paul. Pia reported that she had noticed with Priscilla that Paula's behavior was very unusual lately, and she even began to secretly write a love novel. This confession was too for a young heel. She was red and started screaming at her friends. The girls confidently walked their way, and Hikaru thoughtfully considered their own responsibilities. Venture confidently evaluated his own efforts. He has already collected all the necessary information to finally understand how to get rid of Goblin. He just sent a team of adventure for vacation, as they were trapped again by goblins. It turned out that the adventurers were surrounded by a huge number of goblins who form a whole family. The likelihood that these charming girls will be able to successfully resist such an attack seems insignificant. Hikar realized that he would have coped with several goblins, but the whole family is too much. However, fortunately, there was another way to get out of this difficult situation. The goblin leader soon appeared, strikingly different from his brothers. Due to his skill of secret movement, the Hikar rapidly and unnoticed to the back of the goblin leader and overtook the dagger to the very arm. From him, the shrill cry of the moon was released, and from the nasty mouth the leader scored the bloody fountain. In a few seconds, the main pride of the goblin family fell dead to the ground, causing a real shock among the whole population of goblin. Hikaru again felt the consequences of using the killer skills. A piercing pain covered his whole body. However, it was comforted that his rank rose 3 steps at once, reaching the 11th level. The moment has come to check the truthfulness of the information about the goblins and wait for their arrival, so that by seeing the loss of their leader, they fled in a panic. At that moment, Hikar heard a shrill cry of the girl and realized that there was no point in delaying. If a man is still in danger, you should intervene immediately without waiting for the goblins. Hikuro decided not to waste seconds and realized that it was time to speed up using instant movement. The young adventurer managed to save the healer of the deal, causing an accurate blow to the dagger. After a touching farewell to the girls, Gikra finally felt calm and decided to continue hunting for monsters. Returning to the city, Gikra was surprised how the day quickly passed. However, he still was able to raise his rank to a significant level. The last creature that Gikra managed to overcome was a huge forest Varvara. It was extremely important to gather all the information about the convoy, which was to carry Libya. Hikara came to the conclusion that if a member of the Aventurist Guild Flora has many secrets, it is quite possible to find out even more useful information from her. Therefore, he quickly went to the guild and talked with the administrator. Although the time was late, the doors of the Aventurist Guild remained open. Suddenly, Hikaru met in the guild of the adventurers of 3 adventure girls, whom he recently met. Their leader explained that they wanted Hikaru to confirm their words. Hikar decided that he should check the information about the merchants. However, data on insidious adventurers were confirmed instantly, and girls seek to clarify the issues of opponents. Hikaru realized the need to tell in detail all the events related to goblins. Flary explained that since they are engaged in adventure, they are obliged to know all the nuances. So it would be good if Hikaru in details put everything. Fleur also did not withstand the test of jealousy, and stated that Hikaru, who once agreed to go with her to the cafe, now seems to have decided to do with other girls. Flora noted that she really needs to talk to Hikar, and she has been waiting for a good opportunity for this. When Hikar wondered why these brave women also appeared here, because they agreed to talk alone, an unpleasant surprise was waiting for Hikar. The company of girls was expecting a free dinner. This was the beginning of the adventure. He sharply stated that he did not plan to pay for each of them. But the Flora in response noted that there was simply no different choice. Hikara came to the conclusion that if he thinks about tomorrow, it means that it is too early to die today. Given that he had already had everything, he did not know what to ask Flora. Hikar asked the receptionist why guild remained open after her departure, to which Flora replied that Unken was still in place, so everything would be fine. She added that they still have a deputy master and another administrator, who are now on a business trip in the capital, but will return today. This news was quite interested in a young traveler, but at the same moment the owner of the cafe approached the table and greeted the visitors. During the dating, the Hikar was immediately introduced, and the manager immediately realized that he was the one who caught a red rabbit. The manager expressed a desire to buy a rabbit for a decent amount, but the Flora intervened, reminding that it is impossible, because the guild is interested solely. The manager laughed and noted that he was more interested in the viscera of the rabbit, which, in his opinion, is usually thrown away. He asked, if possible, to bring them to him so that he could look at them, promising a generous reward. The manager, calling the Hikar's child, asked for such kindness. However, the young researcher wondered if it is decent to turn to the person with whom you are talking. The manager drew attention to the very childless look of Tikru and apologized for his words, suggested to treat them for free. Such generosity was pleased with Tikro, because he did not really want to pay for food for all his companions. The manager, continuing to laugh, noted that instead, he would like the young traveler to consider the possibility of concluding a favorable agreement. The offer of free dinner really made Hickory think. In the meantime, the girls shone with joy and already imagined what they would order. Silas noted that Pi was too greedy, giving herself with her head. However, Paula noticed that Silas herself was already in saliva above the table. Apologize for your behavior and behavior of your friends. But Hikar asked the girl not to worry and not to turn to him on you, because he was the youngest at this table. Paul badly understood the request of the adventurers and called him Jicarus. But the boy explained that the appeal was wrong. The healer then called herself a night slave with... Flora was surprised to ask if Hikar was in fact able to avoid such a huge number of goblins. Ruruk decided to confess everything and explained that he only defeated their leader, and the rest of the fright ran out of fright. Cook explained that he was able to do all this thanks to the instructions, which, although the old man, was extremely useful. Laura praised the boy for his passion for reading. But Hikar explained that it was not only reading, but also that it helps him to survive in harsh conditions. Hickory noted that to attack all goblins at once, when there are only two brothers, true stupidity. Flower agreed with that. Their words caused the girls from the adventurous team feeling shame, because that's what they did so inadvertently. Pia again expressed gratitude to Hikar for their impressive salvation, and asked how they could thank him. The priest Sissy, which was usually silent, suddenly exclaimed that they would give Hikar their purity. Paula immediately supported this idea, and judging by its appearance, was ready to embody it immediately. However, Flora intervened with the words against, noting that it would cause great discomfort for the Hikar. The young adventurer explained that he did not need to pay at all, because he just wants to discuss some of the issues of Flora, and that will be enough for everyone. He was asked not to tell anyone about the case in the forest, just remember that he had simply saved them, and no more. Flora agreed, because they had already begun to be questioned, and it would be illogical if the truth was revealed that he had saved Hikar. Fleur agreed to close this topic and no longer mention it in the guild. Paul was amazed at this decision, because some of her rough dreams crashed. Hikar noted that he had a question for Fleur, and the girl readily agreed to listen to them. Gikra asked a special escort detachment and asked if they had already arrived before Ponda. From the reaction, Flora became clear that she knew something, and Gikra noted that, as far as he understood, members of the Aventurist Guild were also part of the elite detachment. Hikaru asked if these were those people who had to return from a business trip from the capital. Flora replied that Hikar's intuition was perfectly saved, and the guy wondered which of the adventurers participated in the escort. Flora, looking thoughtfully, gave herself weight, igniting intrigue. Finally, Flora has admitted that an escort was headed by a team of 4 girls who have a high rating. They promised to arrive this night. The team noticed a strange reaction of Pia and asked if it was really so important. Flora replied that this is serious, because this level is almost the highest. However, the capital itself has only 1 girl with rank A, and only 10 such girls in general, given the previously mentioned. For the Hikar, the number 6 seemed significant enough to call it rare. On the floor, it was noted that it seemed that Hikar had never visited the city before, and if you compare it with the lake, there are 50 times less girls. The young administrator said that this brave team of girls is named 4 Eastern Stars and has a 100% success in completing tasks. From the floor, it became apparent that Libya would be accompanied by travelers of rank B. 4 girls, known as 4 Eastern Stars, are considered extremely strong because there are only 10 in the capital. This evening, the adventure girls had to come to the guild, so our group decided to find out what they really were. It turned out to be a team of adventure men called the Far Beautiful Star. The team leader reported that he was an adventurer of C, and UNNC was infinitely grateful for their arrival. At that moment, Hikar used the ability to show life and was amazed at what he saw. The young adventure seeker realized that in addition to Ken, there were 2 more administrators and a deputy master, and the other 3 came as accompaniment. They differ from the flora that the girl told him. The leader of the team was the Nugas Sword of the rank C, but his skills were not allowed to detect Hikar. 2 other adventurers did not pose a serious threat, so they could not be taken into account. The Uncan asked how they were going to accomplish the accompanying task if there are only 3 of them. Usually, at least 4 are required for such work. Nagi probably stated that they belong to the Marine Rangers, and reminded that attacks rarely occur along the way. And even if something happens, they will easily discard any threat. Nagisa enthusiastically stated that his team did not consist of simple, and no doubt stronger than the Eastern Stars. Therefore, it does not matter that there are only 3 of them. According to the deputy master, he assured Nagi that there was no reason to excite, because their abilities are not questioned. He also added that he had already booked a table for the entire team. An annoyed Uncan asked if they were really going to drink before tomorrow. However, the deputy master assured that there is nothing wrong with this, because they go only at noon, and even before the sunset they will be in the capital, so everything will be fine. Deputy Master Rogso went to the snack, together with adventurers to celebrate the beginning of a new mission. And Kana remained amazed, unusual guests. Undoubtedly, this situation seemed extremely suspicious, and he could not understand what was happening to the Guild of Adventurers in the capital. The administrator explained that the increase in the ranks of adventurers is associated with the war, not with their personal abilities. Because of this, the government increases the reward for tasks. Ungkan called it all a very bad practice, but confessed that the accompaniment could at least help, and then, perhaps, everything would have been successful. UNNC asked the girl whether she was familiar with Rollins. The administrator of the capital noted that, as far as she knows, Rollins was the captain of the Knight's army, but she had not heard about Kenzie before. He was in a sublime mood, because he believed that he was smiled. Only 3 people were accompanied. All you have to do is collect the necessary information and prepare for the attack. A bold rescue operation in Libya was planned for tomorrow. Next to the council building, 2 guards expected the tuple, vividly discussing whether the pretty Libya really killed her father so mercilessly. The boys acknowledged that there was no direct evidence of Libya's fault, but it happened that it was considered guilty from the beginning. The security was also not concerned with its task, because their role was only in the execution of orders from the capital. Meanwhile, Libya was ready for transportation, with special magical handcuffs that could be removed at the right time. The main alchemist explained that these handcuffs would retain force until the evening will come, and then their action would disappear. The vigilant guard thanked the alchemist and added that they would already arrive in the capital before the sun. The alchemist began his business, and the guard asked Libya to prepare for departure. The girl, without expressing any emotions, silently obeyed the orders and moved up the stairs. Suddenly, the guard felt a strange gust of wind and decided that it was only his imagination. For the first time in a long time, Libya saw the bright sun and felt the freshness of the air. It overshadowed her mind, and only thanks to the guards did she not lose balance. The guard announced the captive that the carriage was already waiting for her and called for hurry. And then he was surprised to see brave travelers who were ready to accompany her. The guard commander was outraged because he was promised completely different adventures. However, the insidious masters of tricks convinced him in the opposite and stated that they were incredibly experienced and skillful adventurers. The commander asked why no one obeyed the guild orders, to which Rogs explained that they were allowed to take these people as guards, so there were no problems. Amanda was indignant that she could not be trusted by strangers. However, Rogs remained adamant, reminding her that it was time to go to the capital. When the Nogus noticed Libya, he stated that she was pretty and would be pleased to make her company. The security commander noticed that the traveler was intoxicated and stated that he was not capable of performing his duties in this form. However, the Nogaus did not in any way admit his guilt, only slightly glanced at the commander. A real dispute broke out between them, which was the purpose of finding out who had more power. Meanwhile, Libya was already standing near the carriage, only to sit in it. As soon as the girl goes into the carriage, the guard commander says that they should act. However, subordinates deny, considering it meaningless, because they have their own tasks, and they should not make independent decisions. The commander suggested calling the knights from the capital. However, he was reminded that because of the lack of people on such tasks, it is better to turn to adventurers. So he had to just calm down and not worry about another's mission. At that time, Nagus watched Libya with interest, trying to talk to her. The guard drew attention to such inadmissible behavior, but at this point the driver reminded the nose that it is time to go. He called the driver sideways and asked him to listen. The man explained that when travelers ask for the keys to the cage, in any case, he should not give them to their hands, since royal aristocrats were involved in this case. In the event of trouble with the girl, responsibility lay on Kucher. The annoyed guard sent Kucher to the carriage, ordering him to keep silent about this conversation. Kucher quickly moved his carriage, and she gradually began to move away. The outraged guard commander cursed the insidious adventurers several more times. At this point, Captain Rollison appeared, and immediately noticed the gloomy mood of his subordinate commander. Were surprised by the unexpected appearance of the captain. Rollison explained that the case is so important that he decided to personally understand the situation. Poland stressed that this mission is extremely responsible, so everyone should remain in a clearly defined place. As a captain, he will not suffer any objection. Williams appealed to the excited commander to share all his experiences. Meanwhile, at the exit from the city, they carefully checked the carriage to find out the purpose of the trip to the capital. Litigation. The documents, of course, were in full order, so the carriage quietly moved on its own way. Subsequently, Kuker seemed that his horse suddenly began to move much slower. However, everything returned to the norm soon, and he decided that he had just seen. When the carriage drove far enough from the city, Nagisa persistently demanded the carriage key, emphasizing that he was not going to repeat his demand. But their conversation was suddenly interrupted by a man near the road who pleaded about a sip of water. Despite his northern nature, Nagis stopped and decided to help, reaching out to the stranger his flask with water. After receiving the desired water, the stranger suggested taking his belongings as a sign of gratitude. But Nagis refused. They say he did not need anything. Ranger, seeking to find out the name of his savior, turned to the traveler. Nagis was proudly introduced, assured that he would soon become a real hero. Nagis rolled up the horse to catch up with the cart, but the stranger only smiled after the future to the hero. Walking nearby, Noga decided that he was getting too boring, and again remembered a beautiful girl locked in a carriage. Nog asked the carts to stop the carriage for a moment, because everyone needed a little rest. The daring adventurer hardly demanded to get the key to the carriage, and for convincing several times he hit the driver. Soon Nogus got the key, and the adventurer impatiently opened the carriage to enjoy the beauty of the captive. To the great surprise and horror of Nogus, there was no girl inside the carriage. Instead, only a twisted blanket lay there.